I'm Jake.
And I'm Marlin.
AKA Guy. And welcome to the Christmas episode, I guess, of the JMC reviews.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Oh, Christmas tree. Oh, Christmas tree. Oh, Christmas tree.
Today's movie is the 1997 TV movie made for Showtime, Elvis Meets Nixon.
Nixon, at this point, was in a high state of paranoia.
That's what I need to help me change my image with the kids.
Hail rock and roll.
You can't make this up.
This movie takes place a few days before Christmas. There's a few decorations seen here and there, so it technically counts. Elvis Meets Nixon, the first film to be made about the infamous 1970 meeting between Elvis Presley and President Richard Nixon. A meeting that continues to bewilder people to this day when they hear about it.
Well, you don't know what this means to me, you know. I'm a poor boy from Tennessee here in the Oval Office.
It's not exactly oval. It's more roundish.
I was surprised to hear about it, yes. And I am still bewildered.
Well, I don't quit. It's the Capricorn in me.
You're a Capricorn?
Me too. When's your birthday?
January 8th.
January 9th.
No.
I chose this one because it's an interesting movie to talk about, and while I'm not the biggest Elvis fan, I do enjoy his music a lot. I've read up about his life a lot, seen a couple of his movies, and you lived through the Nixon presidency, so...
I did. Yes, I did.
So I feel it's a fair balance. Elvis Meets Nixon came out in 1997. It was directed by Alan Arkish, a director who has had a bit of a bumpy career as far as films go. Earlier this year, me and my buddy Alex reviewed his 1978 film Death Sport. In 1979, he made Rock and Roll High School for Roger Corman, a really funny and pretty kick-ass rock musical.
They tried to stop their music, but the kids got wrecked and rocked the school.
However, he's also known as the director of the less than favorably received Caddyshack 2.
The Shack is back.
If I pull the arrow out, will you please suck out the poison for me?
Is there any money in it for me?
However, he's had a pretty successful career since then in television. He's directed episodes for various TV shows such as L.A. Law, Saint Elsewhere, NCIS, Dawson's Creek, and he actually won an Emmy for directing the 1998 miniseries The Temptations.
Really? A musical thing. All right.
The script was written by Alan Rosen, whose career had primarily been as a writer for sitcoms, Different Strokes, Archie Bunker's Place, the follow-up to All in the Family, which is referenced in this film.
You have to realize, we were so square then. I mean, they had us out for months trying to get All in the Family off the air because it was so outrageous. Bad for America. We were all nuts.
Alan Rosen has not written or produced anything since this movie. Wasn't that bad.
Or maybe this is his best ever.
The children of America hate me. I tried reaching out to them. I went on laughing and said, "Suck it to me," remember?
Elvis Meets Nixon, We'll say I enjoyed watching this film. How did you feel about it?
Well, it was interesting because there's some factual material behind. They gave a lot of work on giving you some backstory on Elvis and how they got to what they were. For example, how at the time his agent, the
Colonel
Colonel Parker was getting half off the top of anything that he made. Just different things like that.
Wait, I thought he got 25%.
He used to. See, but he convinced us a few years ago, after all he'd done for us, that he deserved a raise.
So that was pretty good. They also did it with Nixon.
1962, Richard Nixon, in a surprising defeat, loses his bid to become governor of California and utters his now famous comment to reporters.
You don't have Nixon to kick around anymore.
And becomes irrelevant for most of the 60s.
And Elvis, this is when he was starting to get into the flashy suits and starting to really blow up.
Yeah, he got heavier, yes.
He's not quite as heavy as here, but we do see many scenes of him eating very unhealthy food.
Danish and, on and on. Just
pancakes, butter, grilled sandwiches.
Stopped in the donut shop.
That's them glazed ones. All right, make sure you give me the fresh ones now. I don't want none of that stale shit.
Elvis Presley.
Richard Nixon, this was 2 years into his presidency. The way they portray Nixon, he's obviously paranoid and concerned about his image and trying to find a way to win the young people over.
Yeah, to be, I didn't start the war, the Kennedys did, and why do they hate me? Well, it's your war now, but nobody told them that.
The Kennedys started it. Why did they hate that?
Well, maybe it's something to do with the way they were assassinated.
The film has an almost, and it's listed, I believe, as a mockumentary, and
it was that. A lot of mock.
Crosby, Nash, Stills, and Young.
Bing Crosby joined the group? No, must be one of his kids. All talentless. Except one. I saw him in the Twilight Zone.
it is funny at certain points, enjoyable, and the actors, I think, mostly do good jobs. One of the cons I think I'd have with this movie is there's this weird, inconsistent tone throughout it. It is a comedy all over, but sometimes it feels like it's trying to be a real movie, and then we get the interview segments, like a real documentary. Sometimes they're with people playing themselves, such as Wayne Newton, Tony Curtis, Graham Nash, Andrew Butterfield, and TV journalist Edwin Newman.
He was with CBS.
And the narrator for this film, who we see a few times talking to the camera, is none other than Dick Cavett, narrating in his usual smooth, monotone way, and I think he did a decent job as the narrator.
Yeah, he did better.
These two icons of the 50s, adrift in the 60s, who strangely seem to rise and fall, and then rise again together, finally meet in the White House for reasons that still seem beyond comprehension.
His presence, speaking the way he did when he was doing serious work, gave some credibility to the thing. Again, it's very hard to say what is factual and what is not. You get a kind of an idea, particularly the way the script was for Nixon. Yes, he was paranoid. He was this, he was that.
They do a spot check, perfectly legal. And if they find anything, bang, bang.
But he wasn't that bungling as he's portrayed in this, which is great comedy, but I can't believe it's, they're really trying to touch Nixon. I think they're trying to make fun of him.
Shit.
And they do successfully.
The same with Elvis. They do handle Elvis a little more fairly at certain points, but the mocking part of the film, it could work as a comedy, but I think I would have preferred a more handled with more respect type of film.
Yeah, that would have been a better thing.
And the interviews, while they were entertaining at times and interesting, they felt a little weird, and also when they interviewed actors who played fictionalized characters in the film and just put them in old age makeup, I don't know, I just thought that was really dumb.
Yeah.
We get some interviews with Deep Throat, and no shock, it's not the actual Deep Throat appearing here.
Nixon, at this point, was in a high state of paranoia. Of course, I never knew him to be in a low state of paranoia.
For anyone wondering who plays Deep Throat, because he's in the shadows, trying to be very all the president's men mysterious. He's played by Kevin McCarthy, a classic actor of the 50s and 60s, who some movie buffs might recognize from Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
You fools! You're in danger! They're after you! They're after all of us!
Like I said, some of the interviews are funny, but they just seemed a little inconsistent in tone throughout.
I don't know if they were inconsistent, but every once in a while it would get to be where you were thinking you were getting something factual to dig into, and then other times it was just over the top. So
You couldn't have been nicer.
Or cuter.
I idolized them.
I wished I'd have screwed him. Right behind the counter. Purple suit and everything.
Okay.
I wish I could have watched.
Toy to get awkward, lady.
there was a lot of comedy in this, a lot of sarcasm, making references to things that would be historically meaningful from that period of time going forward.
That's one other part of the comedy where you seem to like it, but I was not as hot about that part. We see Elvis in a cab, the driver's listening to the Jackson 5.
It's Motown, a new group, the Jackson 5. Man, it scares me to think what my daughter's gonna listen to when she grows up.
Get it? Because his daughter ended up marrying Michael Jackson. And then at the end...
Well, you know, I wish I had a tape recording of this meeting here. You know, so I could play to my wife and to my little daughter. Tape recording meetings. Ollie, I thought we closed here in front of the flag.
Get it? Because Watergate? Ha ha ha!
I'm reading a new book, The Godfather, Mario Puzo. It'll make a hell of a movie, and I can only see one actor who could play the Godfather, Chuck Aston.
Yes, it was very blatant, less than subtle.
But then again, this is from the director of Rock and Roll High School.
I need to get to Washington, D.C.
Oh, right. And will you be coming back to Memphis?
Honey, I always come back to Memphis. Right now, I'm just on a whim.
How do you think Rick Peters did as Elvis Presley?
He didn't look like him. However, the way he carried himself, carried on, the sound of his voice.
Credit card, yeah, wait a minute. I gotta keep one in here in case of an emergency, and there's definitely an emergency. My boy. Don't leave home without it, huh?
I was there, he had me there, and he was Elvis for the purpose of this movie. I mean, there's no doubt it was comedic and a lot of tone and everything like that.
Oh, now look there, see? People of all color caroling away. They ain't singing Deck the Halls, my man. They protesting the war. Now that don't ruin everything. Damn drug-taking hippies.
I would be interested to know if a lot of the kind of thoughts and biases and attitudes about things that they had Elvis portray were factual for him. And you just couldn't take seriously some of the things he said. Although the stick-up in the donut shop, Edwin Newman said that was for real, or that happened.
That's Elvis fucking Presley. Hey, listen up. The king is here. Oh, look at all those diamond rings. Lord have mercy.
I am on keeping them, too.
Shit.
That was a weird scene.
Yeah.
I mean, Elvis was weird, but yeah.
How much for donuts, man?
That's all right, man. On the house.
Well, thank you very much. Nobody follow me outside now, and no one get hurt. Always wanted to say that.
Damn, Elvis! First you steal our music, now you want our donuts?
And did in fact he bring a pistol to the White House to give as a gift.
In both this version and the 2016 film, Elvis and Nixon, both movies portray that, yeah, he did bring a gun as a gift for Richard Nixon.
Well, I hope you'll like it. It's a real special gun. You know, it killed a lot of Nazis. Oh, and
This one he referenced as one that had killed a lot of Nazis, and he put in 7 silver bullets, like the Lone Ranger.
Another thing that movie has him say, the later movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're both doing it, that thinks okay.
If they both portray certain events pretty closely, then probably possible, yeah, it did happen that way.
Okay, but that's just nuts.
And, yeah, Yeah, it is.
I've been crazy, or I'm going crazy, or something.
I thought Rick Peters did a respectable job as Elvis. Yes, he doesn't look exactly like him, but he's at that point once again where Elvis is starting to get on the heavy side, and he's got the longer hair, the colorful suits, and for that version of Elvis, I think he slipped into it reasonably well. I do think he got the voice down, and when he had to sing at those certain points, I could buy that as Elvis.
Yeah, it was close enough.
Swing down 3 chariots, stopping, let me ride. Rock me, Lord, come and easy. I got friends on the other side.
I guess I can respect the film for not giving a kiss-ass portrayal of Elvis. I mean, they do portray him as being very flawed in this film.
Do you think? Yes.
I thought you were one of those groups, you know, like the Beatles.
Lady, the Beatles couldn't polish my guitar strap.
But not in an ugly way. Although he had some things that he was kind of unforgiving about hippies and all that kind of thing and protests and all that early. So they portrayed him.
They portray him as having kind of a pouty, almost childish personality. And the thing with Elvis Presley, from what I've read and what I've seen, he was the biggest star on the planet for many years, and he pretty much, from what it looks like, lived in a closed bubble for many years.
Some background says it was probably the makings of the Colonel that set things in motion like that, because it was easier to control him, I think.
He also was used to getting whatever he wanted.
The way he was in this movie, he was to that point. Maybe as a younger guy coming out of, some poverty, is my understanding, he probably was not that way all his life.
I don't know, maybe I should just join the gospel quartet, like I wanted to when I was a kid. Tell you, my mama would have liked that. Of course, then I'd still be driving a truck.
And another thing I think Rick Peters nailed was Elvis's charisma when he had to put that on. When he's talking to the hotel people, the people at the airport.
Can I get your autograph?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
To Randy? Your biggest fan, Randy?
We get the scenes that, once again, you gotta wonder if this is true, where he just gets on the airplane with his many guns, because Elvis was really into carrying guns, and he was like a deputy sheriff, honorary shit.
Hey, wait, sir. Sorry, Chief, just my gun. Nothing to worry about.
This all happened. The airplane, you can't make this up.
Yes, and even back then, walking into the White House with guns, that was, I think you search even the king back then. I think they portrayed the Secret Service as a little loose on the security.
Oh.
Sorry, fellas, I forgot about my Derringer.
How stupid can you get? How stupid do you want me to be?
One of the things that was funny, in the scene where he's going to go out on the street alone in L.A., and he ends up in I suppose they would have called it in the day, a hippie neighborhood. And he was worried about going out because people would recognize him and, what a mess that would be. Then all of a sudden he was having a little bit of problem because nobody was recognizing him. You think he's an impersonator?
They probably do.
And that was subtle. He acted that. It wasn't just a slam dunk.
Man, it's wild. I can walk around and be with people.
And then there's that scene in the record store where the hippie, I can't tell if this film is being a complete slam against hippies, but yeah, just, you could understand why you get pissed at that.
Well, they did work the stereotype. There's no two ways about it.
Hey man, I don't know anyone who buys Elvis albums, alright? Do you? Or maybe some rednecks.
Hey, Elvis! Don't waste them!
You're Elvis Presley? I didn't think you were so old.
The scene where he talks with that protester.
You're the reason I'm doing this. You are the reason that everybody's doing this, man, even if they don't know it.
Man, you're really crazy.
Can I sit down?
Okay.
You changed the world all by yourself.
That was honestly kind of a tense scene, but I thought it was well acted, and you could tell he was thinking about what the guy was saying.
And then when the protester told him how John Lennon had recognized him, given truth to him as the one who started it all.
Before Elvis, there was nothing. You said that? Yeah. I remember that.
Really? He said that because
Elvis is portrayed as hating the Beatles.
Yes.
Although he didn't talk about it in public, Elvis didn't like the Beatles. He thought they'd come over here and stolen his throne.
And one of the positives, I guess you could say, they gave Elvis in this film was his generous personality. Like when he meets that soldier coming home for Christmas.
I enlisted with 3 buddies. I'm the only one coming back. I want you to have this. I want you and your family to have an extra Merry Christmas. On me.
I thought that was a nice, touching scene.
Yeah. He had no concept, I think, of money other than, we have some money, I want to give it to the soldier.
And also the scene where he's on the plane to LA, because in this film, Elvis is zigzagging all over the country. He walks out of this Graceland mansion after an argument with his wife and father, immediately goes to Washington, D.C.
He planned to hole up there until his meeting on Monday morning.
What's $1 million look like, John?
Yeah, okay, man, John Wayne.
After watching Big Jake, which, it's funny, a movie that probably has a ton of historical inaccuracies. It's the fact that they show Elvis watching Big Jake, a movie that didn't come out till the year after these events took place, that kind of bugs me the most.
Right, and a year after, plus get to the point where it's going to be shown on television.
What does incompetent mean?
You may have family, you may have friends, but when day is done and the lights go out, you are all alone with just yourself and God.
And then he becomes paranoid because he's watching like a late night evangelical program.
Yeah.
I just realized, you see, I never spent a night alone in my whole life.
Freaks him out, so he gets on another flight to Los Angeles to meet out with a friend. While on the plane, he talks to a little kid, which might seem inappropriate to some, but he just talks to him. The kid is all alone, which questionable choice by whoever is that kid's guardian. The kid and him are talking, and
Was your first time flying alone?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, me too. You okay?
I miss my mom.
Yeah, me too.
Elvis's mom died.
You want to get some more ice cream? Come on.
The conversation was just fine. He didn't force the kid to talk to him.
When he said, "I miss my mom too," I'll admit, in this silly movie, that was kind of a emotional moment.
Yeah, it was a nice touch. He had a very human side to him, apparently, and it showed through.
For when my wings were spread in the sun, their shadow upon the earth was a turtle.
There were many scenes where he talks about wanting to be something more than he is. Talks about how he's kind of tired of being the king of rock and roll.
I just always felt that God chose me to do something important. I don't know, like he singled me out for some higher purpose. Well, why else would he keep me alive and let my twin brother Jesse Guerin be stillborn? You know, sometimes I wonder what people would say, you know, if they knew that I didn't even like rock and roll music anymore. Well, they wouldn't believe it. Yeah, probably not. Man, I'm tired of being me.
I'm just sitting here like, oh, boo-hoo, poor you.
Then he's telling his LA friend about how it's just a mistake, the whole thing.
You know, my first night at Sun Records with Scotty and Bill, I was just gonna sing ballads, man. Really, that's all I wanted to be, was a ballad singer. So we tried a few songs. Harbor Lights and a little song by Johnny Page. And I couldn't get it right. Everyone was getting real frustrated, you know, so we were just gonna quit.
Started doing some blues riffs and working that, and all of a sudden, that's it.
And that was my first hit. It was an accident. Had a whole rock and roll thing. My entire career was an accident.
So my whole life is a mistake.
I'm sure Chuck Berry thinks the same thing about it.
Yeah, let's be clear, Elvis was not the only rock and roll musician.
Man, this is crazy.
You've said many times you think Chuck Berry is the true king.
Yes, yes. He played, he wrote, he did the lyrics, and he entertained.
Never mind, what you believe is your business.
And now, let's get into the second main character of this film, President Richard Nixon. Played here by Bob Gunton, who many people might recognize as the warden from The Shawshank Redemption.
Looks like a warden.
Or a police chief in the future LA. Very good actor, made a career out of playing slimy authority characters, so I guess maybe they figured that's why he'd fit as Nixon.
Disagree with me, yes, but disagree with respect. Would you like some cottage cheese with ketchup?
What did you think of Bob Gunton in this film?
I'm going to kind of repeat myself with the person who played Elvis. He didn't really look like Elvis, but Bob Gunton didn't look at all like Nixon. Now, that, together with the comedic way that they portrayed his paranoia and his own level of not being current as far as modern trends and modern people and all that kind of thing. But given, if that's the role they wanted, he did it pretty darn well.
Look at them out there. The Sunday before Christmas. You'd think they'd have shopping to do. Don't protesters have loved ones?
I think Bob Gunton did give an okay performance, but it doesn't feel like he's playing Richard Nixon.
To suffer a defeat, how would that look in the future? As I've always said, I want peace, but I want peace with honor. And let the kids know it's groovy to like me. Okay, maybe Elvis.
I just was there thinking, what the fuck is he doing?
I don't know.
I look at this portrayal and I think this impersonation would not even make it on Saturday Night Live.
And I didn't necessarily feel that way about it, but to the fact that I wasn't buying Nixon and, living through it, hearing about it, so on and so forth. We saw a lot of Nixon on television. Now that is different than Nixon in his own office talking with his own staff, acting more casually. I understand that. But it didn't even sound like Nixon.
Seeing you reminds me of the good old 50s. They weren't outside the White House protesting against the war I didn't start.
Gunton, he was funny, I guess, if you could look past the fact that it doesn't feel like Nixon.
Maybe I should add the Beatles to my enemies list.
You have enemies list, sir?
No, of course not. I mean, I might consider such a list, but that would be wrong.
You can say this, he's not sleepwalking through the performance.
No, he's not. And I think the characterization of Nixon, or how he did come across, I think it was pretty much written into the script. Just, they had him bungling, without a clue, at so many levels. And I know that couldn't have been the case.
Nixon, say what you will about him, he wasn't stupid.
Wasn't stupid.
Good.
Funniest scene I think I had with him, aside from the ending, was when he gets the idea and starts enthusiastically talking about bringing Elvis in, and he talks about John Wayne reshaping his image.
He took off his girdle. He changed his toupee. He put on an eye patch. And presto, he wins an Oscar. That is what I need to do.
That was funny. Relating it all to Halderman, who just sits there, you're saying this? Okay.
In addition, if the president wants to meet with some bright young people outside of the government, Presley might be a perfect one to start with.
You're kidding me, right?
The film clearly has more focus on Elvis Presley.
Yes.
But they do give Nixon a good amount of scenes.
They do.
And the reason that Elvis Presley wanted to see Nixon was he wanted to be
because he wanted to become a U.S. Deputy Marshal with the DEA. I swear to God.
And this is in spite of the fact that Elvis had been popping pills for years.
The main thing he really wanted was a federal badge. Elvis had a huge collection of badges.
See, I'm a deputy sheriff in Palm Springs and also Memphis, too.
Are these real, or is this a Hollywood?
No, they're real, all right.
After going to see Nixon, he asked, and Nixon said okay, and then Elvis, no joke, actually bear hugged the president.
And they did include that scene, yes.
What can you say? What really goes on inside the White House is absolutely terrifying.
Rosemary.
Then they took their famous picture together, which, as this film points out, and 19 years later, in the 2016 Elvis and Nixon movie,
That famous photograph of them together is the single most requested item at the Nixon Library at Yorba Linda.
People want to see that.
and there have been many accounts from various people that knew Elvis and Nixon who were there that day, and both sides found the whole thing very bizarre.
Yeah, just like, why does he want to see him? What are they talking about?
Nobody knows exactly what they talked about, and the film, a little unsure if I find it that funny, but as Dick Cavett puts it,
If what you're about to see didn't happen exactly this way, it should have.
I did think it was funny when Elvis and Nixon started singing together.
My wild Irish rose, the sweetest flower that grows.
You know it?
You may search everywhere, but none can compare with my wild Irish rose.
Just came off natural the way the conversation was going.
I just, again, it makes you wonder, is this just the scriptwriters?
Probably.
Or did they do a small medley together as they were portrayed?
My wild Irish rose. What I think I'm hearing. Yes, you are.
And the way they talk in their conversation gives off, the impression of two people who are a bit out of touch and only know so much about what they're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
But they connect, and as Dick Cavett said in his narration, they've had similar careers of being up and down.
Started out, then they faded, then they came back.
Hear me out on this. If we made up a list of all our enemies, you know, the bastards in the pinko liberal Jew-dominated press, like that prick Dan Rather and that cocksucker Daniel Short, or the big celebrity liberals.
Some things never change, apparently. I won't go through all of them, but to sum it up quickly, Elvis's buddy, who he meets out in L.A., Bobby Bishop, played by Gabriel Hogan, is not a real person. He's a fictionalized version of Elvis's very good friend, Jerry Schilling, who would actually later go on to be a manager for the Beach Boys, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Elvis's daughter, Lisa Marie Presley. Was a member of Elvis's entourage, the Memphis Mafia, and even though Jerry decided to do his own thing later on, Elvis continued to be close to him, and while Jerry felt a little pulled into some of Elvis's shenanigans, he did love him.
Must have, yes.
I thought you quit the Memphis Mafia.
Well, it's kind of like the CIA. They never actually let you quit.
The Bobby character, I think, fits what I've heard about Jerry Schilling, and even though it's probably a fictional character, I loved when the chauffeur goes,
I promised the ladies we'd give a ride home. The king has come to L.A.
And the other Memphis Mafia member, Farley Hall, is another fictionalized character based on Elvis's longtime bodyguard and friend Sonny West, played by Curtis Armstrong. Probably the last actor that most people would know about. He was Booger in Revenge of the Nerds, and, well, this is definitely not Booger from Revenge of the Nerds. Curtis Armstrong's doing his own thing, playing kind of a rigid, snivelly character.
I spent 3 hours in an LA jail, Lee.
I can't wait to hear this. Get in, son.
No, wait, please. Just tell me we are not going back to the airport.
Yeah, we are. But we're making a couple of stops first.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Sonny West would like this version of him in the film.
Short.
Yeah, just this character is just one long running gag throughout the film that isn't really that funny to begin with.
I mean, Elvis Presley in a purple cape suit, how tough could that be to find? Elvis Presley wandering around Washington in a purple cape suit? How tough could that be to find? You know Elvis. He never leaves the house when he's in L.A.
And he does get the scene where he talked about how Elvis, despite being a pill-popping junkie, was trying to fight drugs.
Pills wasn't drugs to Elvis, because he had script. You know, from a doctor, prescription. Drugs was pot, LSD, all them drugs made popular by the damn Beatles.
Curtis Armstrong, he fits the nerdy character he usually plays, but here, I just found him annoying most of the time.
He's made a reservation to fly back to... Hold it! Drop the phone! Down to the ground!
Priscilla Presley, played by Allison Court. Her and his father, they're only in the film a little bit, and I think we could have had at least one scene where there's some resolution with those characters, because for the most part, they felt kind of pointless. You could have not included them, and it wouldn't have really mattered.
You bought 6 Mercedes last week?
Yeah, they were the big presents. God damn it, can't I even be generous at Christmas time, huh?
You really can't keep spending like this, Elvis.
The characters, when you come down to it, are the most sensible folk in the movie.
Yeah.
But the film makes them so fucking annoying.
Don't worry, he always dresses like that.
Dad, he's just gone out alone. Oh my God, what's he doing? Elvis can't travel alone. He doesn't carry money. He doesn't even know his own phone number.
He don't know his own phone number? How can a man not know his own phone number?
And I've seen this before. You have a movie where the unsensible, irresponsible character is the main character, but they don't want the audience to be against them, so they make the sensible characters nails on a chalkboard grating.
Yes, the characters could have been anybody else. They didn't have to be the wife, they didn't have to be the dad, but I guess they wanted to let you know, in addition to the Colonel, who was never in this movie, this is what home life was like. He hung out with the Memphis Mafia people. By this time, he had a daughter. He and his wife were not getting along, not open warfare or anything, but wasn't a good place for him.
And his dad, Vernon Presley, he's played by Denny Doherty, who music buffs, old-time music buffs, might know as one of the Papas from The Mamas and the Papas.
Groovy. Hail, hail, rock and roll.
The real shot.
So, overall, it's a interesting movie. I enjoyed most of it.
I probably wouldn't sit and watch it again, but yeah, it kind of drew you in to see, what is this? What? This is nuts.
I'm Elvis Presley, and
You're Elvis Presley and I'm Billy Mays. Drive on.
well, then you're a heck of a center fielder, sir. Now, I realize this is a little irregular, but I have a personal letter here for President Nixon.
It is based on something that happened, but all the other stuff around it, I'm not sure how accurate it was portrayed. And I am absolutely convinced that they set out to make Nixon a comedic character when they wrote the script.
Yeah, not a good Nixon and kind of a semi-decent Elvis Presley, but if you're a fan of Elvis and you like the story about the famous meeting, I think this movie could be enjoyable, and although I think it's interesting, for a film about Elvis meeting Nixon, there's not a lot of Elvis in the soundtrack.
No, there isn't.
I'm guessing maybe because they didn't portray him as the greatest person ever, his family didn't feel like leasing too many of his songs to the film.
Yes, I would think that that's quite possible.
Okay, what else is on here, man? What else is on, huh? Hey, looky, it's Robert Goulet. That'll be enough of that shit.
Elvis really did shoot a TV when Robert Goulet was playing on it. Priscilla Presley later starred in The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear, where her villainous love interest was played by Robert Goulet. Good thing Elvis was dead at that point.
I guess.
Now that don't ruin everything. Let's get out of here, man.
So, I do recommend it, if nothing else, just for curiosity's sake.
If you have some time and you want to just sit and listen to something that's entertaining, that's the best thing I can say. It is entertaining. Give it a shot. There's not a lot of great acting in this thing, but it is a well-done production.
Nice. Not thrilling, but nice.
There's not a lot of Christmas in it, but there is a little, just enough to justify it making this year's holiday episode. And always nice to work with you, Guy. You're one of the only people I still have close contact with in person these days.
Yes.
Can't you get anyone else?
What anyone else? There isn't anyone else. We're it.
I will see you again soon for this year's New Year's episode, and hopefully in the new year things will get better and get back to having my other regular guests back.
He's tired of me.
See you later.
Happy holidays.
Well, now that's done, time to start taking notes for the next review. Hello?
Hello, Jake?
Who is this?
Why do you have to ask? Doesn't my smooth radio voice make it obvious?
Cinema Snob?
The one and only, sweetheart.
How'd you get my phone number?
I have my ways. So, what have you been up to?
Well, I just filmed a review with Guy. We watched and talked about Elvis Meets Nixon.
The Showtime movie, directed by Alan Arkish, where Bob Gutton plays Nixon?
Yes.
You have my sympathies. What's your next review gonna be for?
New Year's Evil.
I see you're covering all the movies I've reviewed so far.
Well, I mean, it has almost been 10 years.
It doesn't matter. Look, the reason I called is I wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas, or at least the best one you could possibly have right now.
Really?
Yeah, it's been a pretty shit year, and you've continued to show a lot of support for my show, even during these tough times, so I wanted to show my appreciation by wishing you a relatively decent holiday.
Wow. I don't know what to say. Thanks.
And wish your grandfather a Happy New Year for me.
Yes, I will. Totally. Say, while I have you, what would you say the two of us may be doing a crossover together?
Call me when you get at least 500 subscribers.
Wow. That was nice. I think. Hey, Guy! You'll never believe who just called!
Man, look at that honky old fade faggot motherfucker. That's Elvis Presley, man. What the hell he be doing in here?
Buying donuts, that's what he be doing in here.